Hello and welcome to Business Today. I'm Siddharth Zarabi, bringing you the latest from the World Economic Forum at Davos, and with me, two very special guests. And they are special not just for the fact that they represent Indian industry, but for what they are doing. With me, Tapan Singhel, the Managing Director and CEO of Bajaj Allianz, and Ramesh Iyer, the Vice Chairman and MD and the President of Financial Services and member of the Group Executive Board at Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. And before I begin, this is something very unique. I have met many business people in my entire career, and this is the first CEO visiting card. And with Mr. Singhel's permission, I'm showing you this. This is a Braille-friendly card, and I hope you can see this. I'm going to request Mohsin, my cameraman. You can actually feel this. Something completely unique, tells you about the company and the brand and the person that he is. And I'm going to start this conversation with you, Tapan, about why this card, what is special about it before we talk business.
Thank you, Siddharth. I think as an insurer, if you don't have empathy, and if you don't really feel for everybody, you can't be a good insurer. So normally I tell people who join my company, if you lie, don't join the company because we sell promise. Two, if you don't feel for people, don't join the company. And if you're not a good human being, let it be. This is not the business for you.
Okay.
So for everything that we do, we try and figure out how can we, just reach out to everybody and what is that we can do to make them feel special. And that's why I thought that even a visiting card, why is it so standardized for everybody? Other than the logo and the color, rest is left to every individual based on how he or she wants, to talk about themselves and the company. So in my company, we look at visiting cards of every individual. They'd be different from what it is. So I thought I should be very inclusive in the way I present my card.
I don't know if you saw that, but if you're a business person, do try this. This is real inclusion. And Ramesh Iyer here, he represents someone or a business which really works in Bharat. Ramesh, let me get the business part of the conversation started with you. You are a Davos veteran. This is at a different time of the year and very different times for business within India and globally. So your first quick take as the WEF conference has started, what are you really picking up in terms of the business mood within the Indian delegation and perhaps all over?
I think, I attended few sessions, met few people. Clearly, from the timing perspective, I would say this is a great time from a weather point of view. From a business perspective, I would think India is at a great position. As you talk to people, everyone is under pressure, seem to be all over the world.
Aren't we under pressure due to inflation?
I think, that's part of your business decision. But India is a growing opportunity.
So you agree with the RBI's business decision of hiking interest rates?
I don't have a complaint about it.
Okay.
I think
it won't hit your business, won't hit rural consumers.
Let's be fair, right? I mean, they have helped us for a very long time, and the time has come where the consumers have to pick up something. But what is the consumer looking for? If his business gets going, he's doing well, he doesn't mind accommodating this cost. I think the problem, the way we have to see it is, when the going is tough and you're bringing these kind of tough measures, it becomes a very big burden on the consumer. So RBI or any decision from the government has helped during that difficult time. Now things are changing. Consumers are back to normalcy. People are earning well. I'm sure their revenues will start growing. I'm sure they'll be more than willing to accommodate.
That's a very interesting take, Ramesh, because one would have imagined that 2 years of the pandemic, the slowdown and what happened to the commercial vehicle business, for example, or across the entire segment that you have a concentration on. And we were hoping that there would be a pickup infra and other businesses. And suddenly you have now the RBI making it clear that interest rates are going to go back up. Isn't that a risk?
I mean, you look at what is the interest increase we are all talking. Let's say a 50 basis point increase has to be accommodated in the system. And look at the asset
Well,
that
to
they
reach
bought.
pre-COVID, you have to accommodate 125 basis points.
At least to start with, it's now 50 basis point.
Okay.
So let's look at that. If the asset cost is 10 lakh of rupee, what's that 50 basis point on the 10 lakh of rupee? Is that the decision on which somebody is going to decide to buy or not buy? I think if you're already...
Does this apply equally, sorry to interrupt you, equally to the SME space as well, which is obviously more exposed to cost pressures?
I think my take on this is all of us have to become super efficient, and we have to save this 50 basis point in some other cost. We somehow think which is more publicly discussed is an item that we think hurts us. But there are a lot of internal costs that even the organizations have to focus on. Right? And now we have all learned to
I hope you're not giving a hint to your colleagues on the next increment cycle, because when CEOs say that, it's sometimes dangerous.
No, so you're right, perfectly right. I think gone are the days where people should think of a fixed increment I would get because I've been employed for 12 months. People are very conscious. They say, if I have delivered great results, don't limit my growth. So I think we are more than willing to look at a structure where I'm not saying people have to earn limited salary, but they can have substantially higher variable salary based on their productivity. But there are many, many such costs.
Decide if you work from home, live with a lesser salary.
No, why? I mean, again, this theory I have not bought into. It doesn't matter where I work from. It matters what I work, how do I produce, and how do I deliver. How does it matter where do I work from? I mean, we have a head office and we have branches. Imagine your residence is one of your branch from where you're operating. Why do you want to kind of say that, oh, sorry, in fact, the company is saving, you're not paying any rent on that branch, right? So I think we should be very conscious of what are we all collectively driving.
I keep arguing for the fact that companies perhaps need to look and consider a bandwidth allowance rather than some of the other allowances that are used from a tax planning perspective, and the government should also look at that. Tapan, I'm coming to you and try and take this conversation further. The economy in India, as Ramesh is saying, and a lot of Indian CEOs and everyone else is saying, India is managing, is proving to be resilient. I think that's also to do with the national character in times of adversity. Insurance mirrors what is happening in the economy. We saw 2 years of the pandemic, troubled times, people took a huge hit, and those who were not insured suffered devastating impacts. Has the pandemic taught Indians a better lesson about the virtues of insuring against disaster of any kind?
It's a very interesting question, Siddharth, and I'm very happy that you asked this. I asked this question to a psychologist friend of mine, because it's so interesting that when an event happens, 15 days, 30 days after the event, you have that recall and that awareness for buying insurance. It tapers down exponentially fast as the period elongates. So when I asked my friend, he said very interesting, the human brain is not wired to see risks. If it was so wired, you'd still be living in caves. So fundamentally, when you look at insurance, people, I've never seen anybody get excited, I'll buy insurance today. But if you have a conversation, people do buy because they realize it's very, very important and really helps. 4% of India's population goes below poverty line because of health issues.
You're talking about COVID, or does this happen annually?
Annually,
In COVID, therefore, it must have been much more?
Much more, yeah. So we don't realize, let's say a catastrophic loss happens. The economic loss would be 20,000 crore and the insured loss is just about 3,000 crores. You're talking of 17,000 crores lost of whom?
So does data tell you that Indians have learned a bitter lesson? And they're buying more insurance, they're insuring themselves?
Initially, I saw a peak, but now it's again flattened out to where it was.
And why is that?
Yeah, so that's why I say the human brain does not see the risk for themselves. So you ask anybody, they'll not think it can happen to me. It will happen to anybody else. And that is why good countries, where the government and the insurance industry work together collaboratively to deliver to the population of the country, makes a huge difference to society.
Could I argue? Sure.
I just want to add a perspective.
Yeah.
In the rural India, we never saw people setting aside some funds for health in the past. And I'm not saying they're buying insurance, but what I'm definitely saying,
they're budgeting for it.
Out of the 100 rupee earned, people have started keeping some amount towards future health requirement, right? They are still not saying, in the past, I've always heard them say, when there is an emergency, we will manage. Today, we are saying we would like to manage, and therefore they start keeping some funds out. And to his point, if now the communication about why insurance is necessary, and out of the funds that you're saving towards health, you spend a small portion of it towards insurance, you're still covered for what you're looking for, is the communication or the education that is waiting to happen there. I think that will change.
Ramesh Iyer is someone who runs a finance company where one of the key things is whatever they extend loans on for vehicles, they have to be mandatorily insured. And the question I have, taking that point, is it time to also look at an enforced kind of structure for insurance. Just like you cannot put a car on the road without a proper insurance policy.
I think you're getting to the real issue now, Siddharth. So now let's look at the other point of it. No, the government came out with the National Health Insurance Scheme, which 40 crore Indians got covered with a 5 lakh sum insured, to the point Ramesh is mentioning. I believe, and there are some states like J&K has done that, where everybody can be covered, and they have made it open to everybody in terms of the government scheme. I believe this will lead to a 4 to 5 years increase in life expectancy of Indians because of good healthcare. And now you see infrastructure developing. You see good companies trying to move to tier 3, tier 4, where they never had presence, to set up infrastructure for health. Now, when you make it mandatory, I think that is where, or the government subsidizes it. Let's look at crop insurance. States which had crop insurance, the farmer suicide rates has come down. Okay. So I think we don't do this correlation of the downside.
But Tapan, these are government intervention programs, and somebody would also argue that it's linked to politics. It's a kind of a political message also. But for the vast majority of people who are also employed in the services sector, who are month-to-month salary people, they have no cushions.
Now, if you look at like US market, it's mandatory for employers to have a health insurance for the employees that they have.
The organized sector in India largely
does that, but it's not mandatory. So the point you're saying, because people don't get excited to buy insurance, the way insurance should be looked into, and it makes such a huge difference in society.
Why do people not get excited? And I would argue and do clarify that there's been a lot of mis-selling in insurance also. I fundamentally believe that when I see, ads or messaging which says insurance is also a long-term investment, it's pretty annoying. From the automotive industry, nobody buys insurance because it's a long-term investment on that depreciating asset, sir. Why does your part of the industry?
I think it's a very interesting question to the wrong guy.
Okay.
I had the general insurance business.
Okay.
We don't have anything long term. So it's all 1 year contract, automobile, health, crop. Yeah. That's from the life industry perspective.
Yeah.
Now coming to the point again, to the point that you're mentioning. The excitement is on two parts. And I really studied this pretty well. I'm a scientist by education. If you could look at the loss ratio, the combined ratio of the industry, it goes at 115, which for every 100 rupees, the industry loses 15, which means they really pay claims very, very well. But the common man perspective is not so good. I think the ease of paying claims has to be so fast that the perception changes. Having done that, look at COVID when it came through, the product which was on offering on all websites costs you about just 600 rupees for a COVID cover. 2 clicks, no underwriting, you could buy the cover, which fundamentally meant 70 crore Indians which did not have a health cover and could afford it. I'm not talking about people who could not afford it and who could access the web, should have crashed the websites of all insurance companies. It could not be simpler than this, 2 clicks, no underwriting.
Because the impression, and a lot of people who have worked in the government or otherwise, they would just say नहीं ये insurance companies ना बस पैसा खाने का तरीका है यार, जब जरूरत पड़ती है तब नहीं देते. Ramesh, you had a point.
No, so the point that I was wanting to make was it is important to understand. See, this is not maybe in their priority set, right? Because they have a limited revenue and they have to maximize the utilization. And all of us believe that nothing wrong will happen to us ever. So therefore, it is necessary to initially mandate. No sooner they start seeing the benefit of it, it starts becoming a practice. So, you refer to a point saying that we are in a business where we also force insurance to be taken. We find most of our owners of the vehicles or loan takers are, self-drivers, driver owners. Now, something going wrong to that individual, the whole family suffers. It was not an easy communication to start with.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
But today when we see the number of claims that we have settled and the families have been settled because of that, I think it's become a kind of a wildfire kind of a thing to say, oh, we also need this.
And I completely hope that, Tapan, you are able to force this change. One quick point, and then I go back to Ramesh. And this is to talk about the low acceptance or adoption of insurance. I take a policy. I get the point that I have to pay a tax to the government, service tax, and now part of GST. I am okay to do it the first time. When I started insuring myself, I think it was in the low single digits. Today, it's 18% GST. And what really I think is unfair to the average Indian, to the poor Indian, to those who barely have no health cover, 18% on annual premiums. I pay tax on a premium on a product that I bought for 20 years. I mean, this is completely unfair. Does it happen elsewhere in the world?
Now, again, a very good question, Siddharth. If you look at it, and I've already spoken about it at a lot of forums, all personal insurances having 18% tax doesn't make sense. Let's look at health insurance to begin with. No? Now, if you look at health services and all, they don't have 18% GST on that. Now, when you're insuring yourself and you expect everybody to insure themselves and you expect the cost to be low so that people can afford it, you expect the services to be good, and you put 18% tax on that. Now, I also want to make a point. When COVID happened, the industry lost, general insurance industry lost 25,000 crores in the COVID claims.
Yes.
Every industry I saw go to the finance minister, ask for relief, ask for exemption.
And many did get.
Did you see the generation industry go after losing 25,000, which is 5 years of the profit, of the total profit industry, 5 years of profit got washed out by just one incident. But you did not see any of them go there.
Fair point.
The only thing that I expected is at least the GST part, which is 18%, should come down, which makes it much more convenient for person to buy.
It didn't happen even before the LIC IPO, which would have been great timing. But, please do your best to get this fixed, because I think it's anomaly. Ramesh, I'm coming to you, and a very simple question in English and Hindi, and an answer in both languages. Electric two-wheeler scooters, क्यों जल रहे हैं? Why are they catching fire? Explain this. This is not a question to you. I mean, it's bothering people. आग लग रही है, लोगों की भी जान गई है. What's happening?
See, honestly, I can't answer this on behalf of the OEMs.
No, like I said,
So,
not on behalf
yeah.
then, but generally.
Yeah. So, probably are we little faster to put it in the market for sales before it has been fully tested for its correctness? I don't have an answer, but, look at it from a consumer point of view. There are two angles to this. One is, they buy this with their hard-earned money, and whether they should lose an asset like this and then wait for
And
an
in some
insurance
cases
claim to
not get
happen.
claims, because
So
claims
whether
are being
insurance
turned
claims
down.
to be, coming in, not coming in, one has to see. The other side is, of course, the health hazard, and related to that, the confidence issue, right? So once you see this happen more often, then people will move away from whether to buy or not to buy kind of a situation. My personal opinion on this, though, is that, there has to be a lot of communication that has to come out to say why this happened and what actions are being taken for this not to repeat.
But Ramesh, why only communications? Let me ask you a direct question. In the traditional automotive segment, India has one of the toughest systems of quality checks, homologation, imported vehicles. I don't even want to get into it. Why isn't there a regulatory architecture for these vehicles? Or am I wrong in even asking this question? Shouldn't the government have thought of this before?
I think they would have thought through, and I'm sure more regulations may come in as well. But ultimately, the fact is that, the safety of people buying is never going to be of any less priority for anybody.
As a leading financer, what do you see happening as far as the electric vehicle space is concerned? Again, this is a broader macro question. From a pricing point of view, do you see an inflection point coming anytime soon?
So very clearly, it will come in, but I still think in the auto industry, when somebody is going to buy a vehicle, some of the first question they are asking is, what is the likely resale price at the end of 3 years? They're still looking at what is the resale price at the end of 3 years, and therefore, all the new introductions, electric vehicle, etc. Again, I'll go back to the same thought of communication. It has to be a very collaborative approach from the OEMs, from the distributor, and from the financiers together to say that, okay, how will we protect the resale price at the end of 3 years? Because that's not established yet, and it'll take time to establish. Because cost of operation is well established, right? Cost of operating this vehicle is going to be much lower than operating any other fuel vehicle. So having said that, people will ask this end question to say, okay, I'm buying into something. What will be the resale price of this vehicle? Or what will be the longevity of this vehicle? Okay, can I use it for ever with no resale?
Very interesting takes, which I hadn't thought about. As we wind down this conversation, Tapan, to you first, and then the final word with Ramesh. And this is to do with the broader India confidence story, how the economy is doing. Like inflation has come as a surprise. Not just in India, across the world. America, for example, is completely shell-shocked with inflation, what's happening in Russia, Ukraine. Independent of all of that, what does the data from your business also tell you about the ground level economic situation in the country? What do you see happening in the next few quarters?
Okay, so if you again see Siddharth, I have seen so many cycles of the India story. You saw Shining India, you saw Make in India, and the expectations of the world and the mismatch which happens. And sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. But you look at it continuously. If we just take the spikes off, India keeps on moving ahead. No, whatever happens.
Fundamental rule of stock investing.
Yeah, it keeps on moving ahead. So the point which I want to say, Siddharth, the India story is intact because of the strong domestic market which is there, the strong demographic dividend which is there, the way you see the unicorns getting created last year, the way you see the wealth creation happening in India. So when you look at Davos, and I meet a lot of people, you see a lot of doom and gloom across, but the Indian pavilions, you meet the Indian industrialists, there's a lot of excitement about India still now. The excitement and inflation is fine. I don't think it should be a surprise. I think with the kind of liquidity which came, inflation had to come. I think everybody's talking about it, and it came a bit faster and a bit higher. That is what the issue is, but inflation had to come. I don't think that's a surprise. But if you look at the economic story of India, I have strong belief in it. I think for the next 20, 30 years, India will just keep on moving ahead till we do something very, very stupid. I think that is the only point we should be careful about.
That's absolutely the most important point. If you can't fix it, at least don't try. Ramesh, the final word on the same question.
See, we do a lot of work in the rural market. It's not a results call, but then the first quarter of the year was a disaster for us from what happened in the rural market. The second wave hit it so hard. And I was always willing to put out my statement and say that rural gets impacted the fastest, but bounce backs the fastest. Any disruption you see, whether it's a poor monsoon disruption, or you talk of any event that would have happened over a period of time, their bounce back is very fast. And we had the same confidence this time around. And then you look at the 3 quarters that we had after that. I think we outperformed in every aspect of whatever was possible. What does this go to say? 2 things. 1, sentiments are back to absolute normal and positive. 2, most of the activity that drive the economy out there is doing very well. Whether it's tourism, schools reopened, people movement, temples opening up, so the
great marriage industry,
the marriages begin to happen. All of that is coming back to normalcy, and it's in fact come back to normalcy. Like we just heard, you meet many people, attended few sessions, and you have somebody sitting next to you, and they see you're from India. Their obvious question is how you guys are doing. Right? So they're asking this, and they're all still worried about what's happening out there. They're looking at our GDP growth, what's happening out. And when we tell them how confident we feel about how things are happening, I think they're all surprised, shocked, whatever you want to call it as. And we as Indians sitting out there don't sometimes realize it. But I think when you come and meet people around, you realize how well you're doing. So for me, I'm going back with extra energy of starting to believe that we are actually doing even better than what we have believed so far.
Absolutely. And that's the message. In a Europe that's once again in the throes of war, energy disruption in America, where inflation is hitting people's wallets, and the subsequent disruptions, India, the elephant, continues to have a story to tell, and that dance is continuing. Ramesh Iyer, Tapan Singhel, thank you very much for your time with us. With that, it's a wrap on this conversation. Stay with us. We'll come back with more. Till then, goodbye.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.